This is integrating your video into your social media content strategy. My name is James Howe. Come on in. We're just getting started. So I'm James Howe. My Twitter handle is @CommunicateHowe. I have a full-service communications company called Communicate and How. I primarily work with nonprofits and charities. I am very interested and very involved with social media, but I also do everything from print brochures, annual reports, media relations, the full gamut. And that's because my background is working in nonprofits. I worked for the YMCA in Waterloo Region for 4 years. I worked for the Daily Bread Food Bank in Toronto for a couple of years. So that's really where my background is, and you have to kind of be a generalist, and I got into social media because I realized it needed to be part of the mix. I'm on Prezi, so I have to come over here to switch slides, but we'll dive right into it. What essentially I'm presenting today is an awareness campaign that I did last November for Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. And I'm using it more as an example, so I don't want anybody here to think that I'm just kind of giving a sales pitch or anything. What I'm really trying to do is to use this campaign as an example of how you can do the same thing yourself. Because it's one thing to come up with a great video, but it's something else to figure out how to share it and how to package it within a larger awareness campaign. And so this is what I'm going to be sharing with you today, is examples of what we did so that you can kind of use that as an example and do it yourself. And it doesn't really make a difference whether you're a nonprofit or a charity, public sector, or in the for-profit sector in some format. Essentially what I'm doing here, sharing, is a lot of it's just good communications practices. And I am wearing jeans, so I guess I didn't get the memo, but I'm also not getting paid, so I guess it's okay. But let's dive into it. I'll show you one of the videos right now. Some of the videos I'll show in their entirety. Some of them I'll just show you little bits and pieces of. I'll turn off the lights so that you can have the best possible view of it. The sound, I was testing the sound before, and if you're near a speaker, it may be loud. If you're further away from a speaker, it may be soft. I think I found a happy medium, but I can't really, I don't think I can have sound, so it's really great for everybody. So if the sound's either too loud or too soft for you, you might want to switch, because I am going to be showing in whole or in part 4 different videos.
You did not.
I don't know how you get away with it.
She doesn't. Oh, look at the time. We should get a move on if we're going to make the 9 o'clock show.
Teresa, let's go. Put that thing down. You've been on it non-stop.
Guys, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to bail.
Why? Is something wrong?
No, it's just
that Steve wants you at home where he can see you at all times.
It's not like that.
That is texting all night.
You sure you're hitting with us?
Yes, he must.
I'm really sorry. You can text me about the movie. Tell me what happens.
He can't go one night without you.
He just worries about me.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a real Prince Charming.
I think it's sweet.
It's not sweet. It's creepy. You have to leave him before before he gets any more controlling.
He's not controlling, he loves me.
Is your Prince Charming turning into Prince Harming? Know the signs of abuse. Know what to do. Learn more at wcswr.org/charming. In an abusive relationship and need help? Call Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region Crisis Line. In Cambridge at 519-653-2422. In Kitchener-Waterloo at 519-742-5894.
So that video was created for a very specific purpose, and it was basically all the videos that I'm showing you today, they are part of a package. They all work together, and they all work with other elements of the campaign. And they all were meant to reinforce and to build upon each other. So one of the great things, or main reasons why we did this awareness campaign, is the Executive Director of Women's Crisis Services, just before Women Abuse Awareness Month in 2011, there had been a woman who was killed by her common-law husband in a hotel in Cambridge, and Mary Zilney asked herself, did she know about us? If she had known about us, would it have helped her? And not being able to answer those questions bothered her, and so she put together a group of people to try to figure out how they could learn to know more and do better. And eventually that became a small group of volunteers, myself included, where we helped to create a proposal for an awareness campaign that would help more people to know about what they did. And it became clear through that process that they needed to find a way to raise awareness. A lot of people in Waterloo Region, even according to a survey that they did, didn't know that they were the only agency locally that helped women who were fleeing from abusive experiences, abusive homes, and their kids. And in particular, I'll get into why we did the demographics that we did. But what we decided to do, at my recommendation, was to place an emphasis on building strong online communities. I had had enough experience with social media and knew about the power and possibility of online communities that I thought that that's what we needed to tap in upon. Prior to this, the agency had had bus ads, and they were nice bus ads, but it was hard to know how effective they were and whether the money was being well spent or not. And what we decided to do, or you could do a TV campaign or radio campaign or something like that, but it tends to come and go. And just like what Jenny was saying in her presentation, if you have a good online community, they help to do the work for you. They help to spread the message, they get engaged in the cause, and they get more active within the cause. And so it made sense to me that they needed to engage people online. They had had a Facebook page, but it had been dormant for a long time. They had never been on Twitter. They did have one or two videos, but they weren't online. And in some ways, social is a really big leap for an agency like this, because up until a few years ago, nobody even knew where their location was. But if they wanted to build awareness, they had to start to build relationships, and online seemed to be the best place, because what we were essentially trying to do was start to build an online community, and we started about last spring, so that by the time we got to November, which was Women Abuse Awareness Month, they had an engaged, sizable community that could help them to share the videos and share the other pieces of the campaign. And hopefully, the idea was that by having that community in place, it would get larger by having a concentrated amount of content shared during the month of November, and then they would have a stronger, then their online community would grow, and then from January until next November, this coming November, they would have a group of people that they could talk to and that would help them to share their message, share when they were in need, share their public advocacy, celebrate their successes. And I'm pleased to say that that is what happened. Essentially, they were not using social media at all, and so we were starting from scratch. But even post-November, I have seen more activity and more people interacting with the agency as a result. So ideally, they want everyone in Waterloo Region to know what they do, and that is they're very seriously their goal. But from a communications perspective, we really wanted to make sure that we were targeting a specific group. And so we decided to target women 18 to 25 because they had done a survey and it showed that women 18 to 25 had the lowest recognition that the agency existed and what they did. Yet, it was a sizable demographic historically in terms of people who are actually using their services. And so there was a major disconnect there. So we had to think about, what do we know about women 18 to 25 years old? They're in a point in their lives where they're moving from a family-home relationship in most cases to being independent young adults. They're starting to get involved in developing long-term relationships. They are active on social media in particular, and this is probably more true last year maybe than this year, but very active in terms of Facebook. We knew that we were looking at places where we could communicate directly to them as opposed to trying to give a broad message. We knew that they were found at restaurants, bars, many of them are in school, and so we wanted to think of communications tools that we could get that would reach them where they are, and preferably in a female-only environment. We know that music is important. I mean, it's important to many of us, but for younger people it tends to be even a stronger importance in their life. And that's the point I made before, that they had a very low awareness in that age group, which made it a priority. Partly because what we wanted to do was make sure that they recognized the signs of abuse and knew that it was not just physical violence. It could be emotional, it could be psychological, it could be financial. We wanted to make sure that younger women recognized the signs of abuse so that hopefully they could take some kind of action before they were in a situation where they found it difficult to get out of a relationship or to address the issues, and where they had to go to the shelter. So it was kind of a preventative measure as well. And here's what we wanted them to know. We wanted them to know what a healthy relationship is. We want them to know that it's based upon respect, sharing, and trust, that the partners are considered equals with the power and control equally shared. And so that was kind of the really important element. But we also wanted them to know that know the signs of abuse and know what to do. And that if they were in an abusive relationship or knew somebody who was in an abusive relationship, that they knew that Women's Crisis Services was there to help them. Because although we were trying to talk to women who may be in some kind of an abusive relationship or experiencing some kind of violence within their relationship, we knew that sometimes it's difficult to recognize that yourself, and sometimes it is the people that you count upon, your family, friends, mentors, that sometimes help you to recognize what you're facing. And so this is another video that was a part of the campaign. And this is one that was done specifically to tap into young women's interest in music. The song is written and performed by a student at Laurier. So those two videos really are a set pair. What we wanted to do, the texting video, as I refer to it, it was an original script, and we wanted to do that because that kind of behavior is something that women in that age group may experience and may not describe as being abusive. And whether it's abusive or not, it's at least a sign that a relationship may be becoming abusive. And essentially what we decided was that, especially when you're young and typically more idealistic, there's a lot of us that are looking for our perfect soulmate, and we do have a culture right now that really celebrates princesses, but you know, even back in the day, all the fairy tales are all basically about finding your Prince Charming. And so we wanted to kind of use that. You find this guy, you think he's the perfect guy, you know, whether you think of the term Prince Charming or not, that's kind of the imagery that you have in your mind. And then sometimes, you know, all relationships become more realistic, but sometimes you start seeing some signs of abuse of one kind or another, and that your Prince Charming could turn into what we're referring to as Prince Harming. And so we wanted to give the young women a situation that they could relate to and try to do it in a short dramatization. And then we wanted to use their interest in music to help to amplify that message and get a little more into the nitty-gritty, but again, in kind of a very friendly way, so we're not kind of hitting them over the head, but trying to give them something that they can relate to, and having it written and performed by a young woman was very important. And then I had the idea of bringing the two together. So in the texting video, if you go back, Danielle it's in a cafe that actually does have live music. And so we had her performing in the background while the women were having their conversation. And then that allowed us to take the same video footage and essentially turn it into this music video. So it helped to link the two and hopefully to amplify the message. And we also deliberately chose a videographer who wasn't a videographer at all. He's a filmmaker, and his background is making film. And so he didn't want to just do what would look like and feel like a PSA. He wanted to have the look and feel of a film using film type techniques. And that helps to make your video to stand out more. If your video looks exactly like everybody else's, you're not as likely to get the kind of attention that you desire. Yes?
I'd be interested in hearing more about that. For example, like what was your benchmark for success in terms of views at the beginning, at the outset? Was there a number that you guys had in mind, and did you reach that number?
We did have some goals, and we did evaluate them. In some ways, it was, we didn't really have a goal in terms of views per se. It was more we were trying to measure how well we were reaching women 18 to 25. And I do have some stats on the success of that, but we did have, basically what I'm sharing with you is the elements of a campaign strategy. So we had our goals and objectives. I left out a lot of the details, but we did have some objectives in terms of what we were looking for to determine level of success.
Well, how did you know that women in that age group were watching the video then?
Primarily, we measured that through Facebook. Facebook turned out to be the primary way. That was where the agency was most comfortable reaching women, or actually the tool that they were most comfortable using, period. And there it's easier to, through the Facebook Insights, it's easier to measure what posts were getting interactions and what the demographics were, including the age. And I do have some specific stats on that later. But we also, it was not just a social media campaign. We did have some traditional elements as well. But this is a diagram that I use for a lot of different purposes. But the point is, you have an overall communication strategy. Maybe you have a campaign strategy or online strategy or social media strategy. But as far as I'm concerned, especially online, everything should drive to your website. The website is the only online property that you own 100% and you have all the control of, and you have control of what happens there and the content. And so we're trying to drive everybody to the website, not just to see the videos and the other campaign elements, but it was hopefully introducing them to the fact that there was a website and there was other information as well that was available there. And adding the content also helped from a search engine optimization standpoint. Yes?
So in terms of getting people to view the video, you were getting people to view the video embedded on your website as opposed to directly to like a YouTube channel or something?
Right, right. And that's where on the videos you saw, we were pushing people to go to WCSWR/charming. And that was a dedicated page on the agency's website that had all the videos and links to related blog posts, newspaper articles, etc. And it still exists. You can see it, because then it remains a legacy thing. Because well, a lot of people probably mostly saw it through Facebook, and some saw it through YouTube. We really wanted to try to raise awareness of the website and the website as a resource for learning about the signs of abuse and knowing what to do, and that the agency existed and what their mandate was and how it was different from anybody else. Originally, we wanted to do washroom ads that we would put in women's stalls, and it would be a poster version of, is your Prince Charming turning into Prince Harming? This is where you need to have a little flexibility in terms of your campaign strategy. When we priced that out, it wasn't something that was going to work for us. And then that's where we had an advisory committee of volunteers from across the community. Somebody came up with the idea, well, why don't we make posters? And so that's what we did. And unfortunately, I didn't bring one with me, but it had is your Prince Charming ... on one side, and then you flipped it over and it had turning into Prince Harming, and then the call to action: know the signs of abuse, know what to do, and then the crisis line information. So essentially the same thing as what you saw flipping there, but with a little additional text. And so we had that at some of the campus bars in Waterloo region. We had that at some other bars. We tried to mainly get it to where we knew that women 18 to 25 would potentially see them. And one of the other things we did with that was we then did have print ads as well. And so like on the newspaper, it might have been on, it was in campus newspapers, again, where we knew we could reach our key audience. And we had like the one is your Prince Charming ... on like page 3, bottom right, and then page 5, when you flipped it over, you got the other side of the message. Yes?
Hi James, my name is George. You might be getting into it, but I'm really curious to know, that's why I actually came to this seminar also. I'm just curious, once the video has been created and produced, there's a YouTube link, whatever. What I'm curious about is, how would you implement a strategy, kind of like a marketing strategy, to disseminate this YouTube video in a very efficient way on the various social media?
Yeah, well, that's...
Like, how would you do that? simply cut and paste the link into, like, are the actual steps of your social media strategy? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that the message that social media, what you're doing on social media with video and other pieces, it should be part of an integrated whole. Social media, especially for this type of awareness campaign, is better and stronger as one element of a larger campaign, and that's why I wanted to start with that. But we definitely did mostly use social media, especially for sharing the videos. That's an image from their Facebook page quite recently. That number 816, when we started last May, that number was about 107. By the time we had the campaign itself, I think it was maybe around 400 or 500, and it was up over 700 by the end of the campaign. But a lot of that, so Facebook turned out to be where the campaign was mostly centered. I really wanted to, I'm a Twitter guy. I love Twitter, and I see Twitter as being, having huge potential for this kind of a campaign. But we were starting from nothing. And Facebook was where the agency had the greatest comfort level, and we didn't really get the Twitter feed working until closer to the campaign. So Twitter didn't have as much of an effect as I had hoped that it might, but Facebook was very successful for them, and it was all hosted on YouTube, so that we could take advantage of the search engine optimization that was there. People can leave comments, you can respond to comments. So we deliberately chose to put it on YouTube to try to get as many eyes as possible. But then, essentially for a YouTube video, any YouTube video, whether you had something to do with it or not, there's a little series of options, and one of them is share. And then when you click on share, it gives you different options. One of them is you can get the embed code. Most YouTube videos you can embed on your website. And that's actually what we did do with these videos. When you went to that Prince Charming page, at wcswr.org/charming, the actual video was embedded into their website. So we weren't directing people to their website and then redirecting them to YouTube. We were directing them to where they could actually watch the video. And same thing on Facebook. On Facebook, we just had to copy the link and paste it into a status message, and people could watch it directly on Facebook, and hopefully they would comment on it or share it or whatever. But we built the community on Facebook in part by being more active in terms of posting, making sure that they posted at least once a day, and encouraging them as much as possible to respond to people's comments as quickly as they could, and doing all the right things in terms of having interesting, valuable content and being responsive. But one of the best things that you can do to build up a community on Facebook is to use Facebook ads. They are cost effective, and they can be targeted extremely well. So in this case, for instance, we would target single women living in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, or within 25 miles of that, and we would show them that there was a page that they might be interested in. We also used the, I'm not even sure if this exists anymore, although there's a variation of it, but it was Jason Dykstra likes Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region, and because Jason is my Facebook friend, it would show up on my ad, because what we did was we advertised to the friends of our Facebook fans, because we knew that somebody was already a Facebook fan. Their friends are probably likely to be interested in the same kind of issues and content. And so that's how we grew the community there to try to make sure that in November, we did a lot of that in September and October, so that by the time we got to November, we had a half-decent base, because you need a certain critical mass on Facebook before you're more likely to get a half-decent level of conversation or half-decent level of sharing. And so that's really important to help you get the critical mass. Now, Facebook advertising doesn't help you if once people sign up for your page, they never see any of your Facebook posts. And they only see your Facebook posts if people are liking it or engaging on it. Because they rarely go back to your page. They really only see what you post if they have been liking and commenting on it, and if other people have been liking and commenting on it. And so that is really, really important. They also started a blog, and one of the blog posts I contributed to them was about basically our princess culture and how we had to kind of help our young girls, including my daughter, to move away from that. And there were other elements that weren't as played as big of a role.
You can take that momentum and roll with it and hopefully see a new beginning.
My name is Amelia and I'm 26. The sticks and like the cross and the twine, I feel that's
It's called a Full Voice Project, and it's really having young women share the signs of abuse.
My first kiss, which is supposed to be special for most little girls and most teenage girls, was a part of a forced sexual act. I still remember feeling awkward, kissing the person I had no feelings for. It was at night. It was cold. Sometimes I can still feel that type of cold, even when I want to like kissing a person. I sat with this butterfly for about 5 to 10 minutes. I felt that although it was lifeless, I wanted to acknowledge its presence. For a moment, I lifted the stick and I blew on its wings, hoping that it may just have been caught, but it didn't move. It made me think of the heavy feeling of being abused, feeling stuck, feeling worthless and alone because of the threats of violence, harm, and destruction. Society, our friends, our families tell us to go, get out, leave. But sometimes the threat or the risk of impending harm crush us and
And so this is called a Full Voice Project. We took them to a butterfly conservatory, and we took the ugliest pictures of a butterfly conservatory that you could ever think. Because we had given them a list of the signs of abuse and asked them to take photos. And then they went back and they selected which photos they felt they could describe, make a connection to a sign of abuse. And then they narrated it. And this young woman whose name was changed was one of the, there were 4 women. 2 of them had some kind of experience some violence or some abusive relationships. And we weren't seeking that. We were just trying to get young women to talk to their peers about the signs of abuse and build off the attention that we had captured through the other videos. But this video was deliberately to try to make sure that they understood the broad spectrum, but we wanted it to come from their peers. But then we did have a couple young women who had very strong experiences, and that raised the impact of the video. This whole video is about 9 minutes long and is worth seeing if it's relevant to you or if you're interested in the subject matter. Did we achieve our goals? The short answer is yes. We can tell from Facebook that we were successful at reaching women 18 to 25. When we started building up their Facebook community, they only had 9 women from 18 to 25 who liked their page. By the time the campaign ended, that number was at 211, and I believe that was out of approximately a little more than 700. But it's a huge increase for that key demographic. We used, especially during the campaign itself, when we had the videos and other key pieces of content, we used the promoted posts feature. The promoted post feature is another form of Facebook advertising that helps your post to be seen. It's more likely to be seen by your fans, and their friends, because Facebook likes it more because you're paying them to share it to those people. So it takes a little bit of the element of luck, and it takes whether you have a strong, whether the algorithm, Facebook algorithm that decides what you're going to see is helping you or not, or is, basically whatever the algorithm says, you don't have to worry about that because you're paying to make sure that more people to see it. And then when more people see it, it's more likely they will comment on it or like it or share it, which then has a multiplying effect. We know that at the peak of the campaign, especially because of the promoted posts, up to 30,000 people were seeing them, and about 40% of those were women 18 to 25. There were, on some of the posts, as many as over 1,200 young women were talking about the campaign's Facebook posts. And there was a post by John Hayden, who I describe as Mr. Facebook. If you're not following John Hayden, and especially if you're in the nonprofit sector, you should be. He calls this talking about stat the single most important stat on Facebook, okay? Because it shows your reach and your extended reach, and it also talks about engagement. Yes? The talking about. John Hayden, Haydon. JohnHayden.com, at John Hayden. I'm a big John Hayden fan. Okay, and we knew that the texting video had, I think, about 1,500 views by the end of the campaign. That's partly because of the length, partly because it came first. That I was hoping for larger numbers, but that's reasonable numbers. Because as I wrote for a post for Social Capital Ottawa, it's not about whether your video goes viral, it's about whether your video reaches the people that you want it to reach. It didn't make a difference if the video went viral if women 18 to 25 in Waterloo Region didn't see it. But yeah, 1,544 views for that one. It's up to about 1,900 now. The video of Danielle singing is now up to about 1,000. I still think both of those videos are increasing. The signs of abuse video is also increasing as well.
Women and their children leaving abusive relationships find shelter and support from Women's Crisis Services. They are unique in operating the only shelters for women fleeing domestic abuse in the Waterloo region. Haven House in Cambridge and Anselma House in Kitchener.
Women's Crisis Services is committed to reaching out and informing every resident in Waterloo Region about our agency and the services we provide for abused women and their children. We're especially interested in reaching 18 to 25-year-olds and their friends and families so that we can work together in collaboration to help break the intergenerational cycle of violence. And in addition to shelter, we also offer outreach services.
First contact Women's Crisis on one of its is creating and plans to leave home.
The education that all of our staff provide, we are building online communities that provide us.
Try and show them from the front. That 3-year-old is my son, so I had to, it's a proud dad moment. Although the woman who's playing his mother is not his mother. But what we were trying to do with this video it's your typical agency overview video, but we were using it to try to emphasize that all women deserve healthy, happy relationships and try to give them an idea of what it was. But if they weren't in that situation, how that the agency was there and how it could help them. But instead of shooting it typically, again, it's shot with a story. There's a narrator who's giving a lot of the typical agency overview video information. We have the CEO and another senior leader being interviewed on camera. But you see this mother and her son from the time they make the call through to their intake and getting their own private room in the agency. And so that, it told a story without looking like every other agency video.
Do you have any guidelines on how long videos should be? For instance, the texting videos and musical videos. Is there a point at which people aren't paying attention anymore?
Essentially, the shorter the better. Generally, 60 to 90 seconds is best. 3 to 5 minutes is okay, but then millions of people watched the video about Joseph Kony that was half an hour. But even on our longer videos, generally, they show you the drop-off in viewership. But you have to be prepared. The longer it is, the more likely you are to lose people before it ends.
And just while I think about what technology did you use? Was it Prezi that you used, or what did you use to have the words come at you like this at the beginning of that video?
That was the same editing tool that the video company used to edit the video.
Okay, so it was within his control.
Yeah, but there are things like, if you're on Apple, there's a very good movie tool that agencies can use themselves. Windows Movie Maker, I understand, is also reasonably good. And in some cases, you don't even need it. Like I am videoing this session. I'll just slice off the beginning where I wasn't saying anything and slice off the end, and I'll just post it up there. And I run something called Social Media Breakfast in Waterloo Region, and we have many videos that are just that kind of one-shot deals. It partly depends upon the audience and the purpose. I think.
If you want to take one or two more.
One or two more questions.
For a break.
Yep. Yes.
How much of an impact do you think your Facebook ads played in the overall success of your video? And are you willing to share roughly what a budget would have been to get those 1,500 views?
The Facebook ads were huge because going into September, they had probably gone from 107 or so to, I think, high 100s. And by October, I think we were 5 something, and we're over 7 by the end of the campaign. We spent about $500 in September and October to achieve a stronger critical mass, and we spent another $500 in November itself.
So you spent $1,000 to get 1,500 views?
Well, I don't like to think of it that way. We spent we spent $1,000 to build an online community, which today, when they're having a big fundraiser in a couple months, is helping to share the information for that. They shared how the elements of a safety plan recently that got pretty good engagement recently. So those, like a year ago, those numbers were not possible. So it's not just about the awareness campaign, it's about the community that lives on, that if you can keep them engaged, it helps you to contact people year-round. Yes?
I'm just curious, how did you come about choosing the type of video that you would want to direct to that age group? Was it
Well, it went back to knowing and defining our audience, which is why I spent some time on that.
Yeah, but...
Well, we knew that one of the situations that is considered to be a sign of abuse is that abuse is all about, especially in a domestic violence situation, it's all about control. It's not less about violence, and that's why violence is defined broadly. We knew that texting was huge in that age group, and that we knew that there frequently that was how guys were controlling the women in their lives. And so we wanted to find a situation that they could easily relate to, and we did the music video because we knew how important music was at that age and stage of life.
So there wasn't any focus testing done beforehand?
No, for nonprofits, it's rarely that you can get that sophisticated, although for this year's campaign, we're focusing on women 24 to 35 because that's the age where there's a lot of violence. Violence is most prevalent, and it also affects their kids. We did do a survey to try to figure out whether some of our ideas would resonate, but because we had a Facebook community and a larger, better, stronger use of Twitter, we were able to get that information, whereas a year ago, we had nobody to ask.
Thank you very much, James. We had to do
Great.
a break.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am around, and you can reach me if you have any questions.